listening to the Saluki Games Cast. This is episode 146 for Thursday, August 20th, 2026. My name is Justin Young. Joining me as always is Mario Sanders. Mario, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been an eventful week.
Yeah, you were telling me about your car misadventures.
Yeah. So this weekend I drove out to North Carolina for my cousin's wedding. And, after, all the stops and stuff like that, it's about 11 hours and 10 hours and 55 minutes into that drive, 3 miles outside of the destination, I don't know, it was like a pothole or something like that. It was basically pitch black in the middle of the forest at that point. A pothole which popped my tire and then bent up the rim of the wheel. So I had to get both of those replaced. So stranded out in North Carolina for a couple of days, which at the time, obviously, like when it first happened, was incredibly frustrating and a little overwhelming. But it all worked out. I'm back. The wedding was good. And, I got to spend an extra day with my cousin. So, yeah.
That's the I'm looking back and I can put a positive spin on this.
Yeah. Well, in the moment, you would have gotten a much different response from me. Probably one with some tears and just like being overwhelmed after such a long day and being in a house full of people, most of which I didn't know. So, yeah, in the moment, it was a lot rougher. But looking back, it's, pretty easy to put it behind me.
It's the sort of situation when something like that happens to me, I'm internally angry, but there's no one or really nothing to be angry about. Yeah. Like I'm going to be angry at a pothole, this inanimate object that, did nothing to me. And so there's just this internal anger, which I know is futile, and it can't be directed towards anything. So I'm just like, oh, okay, I just want to be mad for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to take it out on anyone or anything, but also I don't want to try to pretend to be happy, right at this moment.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that really kind of being in my John Denver remix of the backwoods country ass roads of Appalachia. It was not really a space to pull over and put on a donut. And so I'm trying to just crawl along to a safe space that I could put it on. And now thinking in my, all the overthinking that you do,
sure.
I could have done this, I could have done that, when you couldn't have done anything. But, I tend to do that to myself more often than I should.
This summer, I was out doing something, and there was a Coke machine, and I had a bottle of water. We were hiking, and I had a bottle of water, but I was like, man, I could really use some caffeine. So I'm going to buy a Coke just so I have a little bit of caffeine. And I don't ever drink a whole lot of caffeine unless I'm doing something where I really need to be alert,
sure,
and on. Doing this podcast. And, but anyways, so I go over and I put some money into the machine and everything. And I'm like, okay, well, give me a Diet Coke. Soda out. Okay, fine. Just give me a regular Coke. Soda out. Okay, fine. Give me Mellow Yellow, whatever they have. Soda out. The only thing that was available was water. Which I had a bottle of water with me already,
so Sprite and some caffeine-free option.
Yeah, and I was like, this machine has screwed me over, like it knew what it was doing, and I'm like, now I'm buying a bottle of water. I already have my water bottle that I can refill for free. And I don't need to buy a bottle of water, you stupid machine. And I feel like it's, again, it's this inanimate object. I can't really be mad at it, but I feel like it's mocking me in the moment.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that is the biggest, I had to put the positive spin on my experience, which is it is maybe the most annoying place that it could have happened.
Right.
But it is probably the best place that it could have happened.
Sure.
Because, like, I at least made it to the venue. It could have happened 5 hours into the drive where I'm nowhere close to here. I'm nowhere close to the venue, and I have nobody around to, like,
Sure.
potentially help out with. I had family there. They were wonderful, and all the, taking me to any of the places that I could have gone, and emotionally supportive and all that kind of stuff. But
you feel like you're running the marathon and you hit mile marker 26 and you twist your ankle.
Exactly. You're so close, right? Yeah. No, but like I said, it all ended up working out.
Well, I'm glad it worked out
Yeah.
in the end, even though I can certainly understand the frustration. Let's see. The other day, I went to see a Queen tribute band called One Night of Queen. I feel like if you're going to go see a Queen tribute band, then the person doing Freddie Mercury has to get that really right.
Sure.
Like, that is the appeal of Queen, I feel like. And the lead singer of that band both, like, does the Freddie Mercury look really well, but also does the vocals extremely well. And,
Nice.
I told somebody that, nobody can actually replicate,
Of course.
Freddie Mercury, but it's cool to see somebody who can do it well and, like, really put on a show. Like he would go out into the crowd and interact with the crowd a lot, and really had that showmanship
Nice.
that you're looking for. So plus made me really happy because they played several songs from the Highlander and Iron Eagle soundtracks. So as a big fan of those movies growing up, because they were on HBO literally 20 times a month, that was pretty cool to hear those songs actually getting played live at a concert.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right in thinking about, like, there are just some bands where if you cannot get the vibe of the singer, the front person, it's not that they can't play, like, incredible music, but it doesn't quite give the same thing. I think that's where it's like, I know the other band, being from the Bay Area, that there was a lot of conversation around was when they were replacing, but getting a new singer for Journey, right, to replace Steve Perry.
Yeah.
Like being able to just hit some of those notes the same way. Or even, like, is his name Brian Johnson, who replaced Bon Scott and AC/DC.
Oh, right.
Very different as well. But yeah, like being able to, like, match that energy is obviously easier said than done, but I'm glad to hear that this person was able to do so.
Yeah, because it's not just about the vocals, right? It's about the showmanship.
Absolutely.
Up there on the
especially
stage.
for somebody like Freddie Mercury, right?
Right. Yeah, because, I mean, like, I like Queen music. I can listen to Queen, like, on a playlist or something in the car running or something like that. But, a lot of Queen was a very theatrical band.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that was a big part of their shtick.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, you really need that. And, like, sometimes people blow off cover bands and tribute bands, but, like, you can't see Freddie Mercury anymore.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're gonna see that music performed live, you can go see Queen when they're touring with Adam Lambert. But, like, outside of that, you're gonna have to see it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were talking off air, like, you go see the Beach Boys now. There's one Beach Boy left.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands are like that. A lot of bands are, none of the original members are actually left.
Yeah, I don't know who I was looking at recently. But every once in a while I'll see, if this older band is touring. I think the two that I looked at most recently is, I think Foreigner is touring right now, and I don't know, like, what original members are part of that tour. Is the same thing with, like, Def Leppard was touring. It's like, both of those bands would be, incredible to see, and I would if they were close by, I would definitely still go. But it's also just like not going to be the same seeing them in 2026 as it would have been, in the 1980s.
Right.
In their heyday.
Yeah, I mean, and we're starting to run into that issue, right? Like, I mean, I saw David Lee Roth last year, and David Lee Roth, he can't sing that well anymore. I mean, he just can't do it. He still has some energy out there, but like he just can't like perform in the same way.
Sure.
So like at this point, if you want to see, that classic Van Halen, like you're having to see essentially a cover band.
Yeah.
Right. And, they're now down multiple members.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's always kind of interesting to get into. I never thought I'd be somebody into cover bands, but like the really good ones are definitely worth the time to go see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we move into what we've been playing? I know you've been traveling. Have you had much time to play anything?
Yeah, I played a couple of things, a little bit before the travel and a little bit after. So before, I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I was participating in the event, and one of the games in that event was a race of VVV. I don't know how it's actually, if that's V6, whatever the name of it actually is.
I think I always hear it pronounced all the V's, but like I feel like that's the sort of thing you forget. How did I say 5? Did I say 8?
I like that game a lot. That's a game that a friend and I had like recently gotten back into that we would do races of and like little speed runs of. I think it's from like 2009 or 2010, so it's a little old at this point. But I think that game still holds up really well as like a little indie precision platformer. For people who aren't familiar with it, it's the main mechanic in it is a gravity flipping mechanic where you are walking along and you hit some obstacle, a pit of spikes or whatever, and there's no jump button. So what you do is you flip gravity and you walk on the ceiling to navigate around all the obstacles that will kill you. And, similar to Celeste, it's one of those games where you're going to die a lot in the game, especially on a first playthrough. But it's a lot of fun. I
Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, exactly.
I always associate those two with one another.
Absolutely. And it's probably closer to that same era of Super Meat Boy in terms of when it came out.
Yeah.
But I like that game a lot. And so we did this race. The race went really well. I think it's the best I've ever played that game. I think I finished in 20 minutes, over 20 minutes, which was, exciting. But I think that's a great game. You can probably get it at any given point for like $5 now. So I know I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it's definitely a big recommend for me.
Cool. Yeah, and that's the sort of game that I feel like you can find on Steam fairly cheap.
Absolutely.
Nowadays.
Yeah. And even like a first playthrough, it's 2 or 3 hours. It's not a very long game, but maybe a little longer if you want to like collect all the things. But it's a fun game and definitely a recommend. The other one that I have recently played is a game called FlippUp, which is I think the best way I could describe it is it's like a getting over it style game, but pinball. So you're using the flippers to essentially climb up and up and up into the heights of the pinball machine. And I think it's a
it's a Pinball Quest. Pinball Quest is a NES game. And
okay.
You had to move up to higher boards, but you could always fall down.
Oh, yeah. And it is very similar. Yeah. I think it's a very cool idea. I don't know if it's necessarily for me. I'm close to the end. I do know that. It's currently on sale on Steam. I think typically it's like $10. It's like $6 right now. And I had played the demo, and the demo was cool, but it definitely gets to a point where the gimmicks of some of the areas are not very fun to engage with, or I guess one where you feel like you have very little control, which I think in a game like that yeah, I understand that I'm going to fail a lot, but at least if I feel like it's my fault, I can only be upset with myself. But when you are losing to, I don't know, a wind mechanic that I don't know how else to describe it. Like I said, there's just certain areas where it's out of your control what the movement is like, and
Right.
it adds a layer of frustration. Like those games are already frustrating to begin with, but yeah, when it feels like it's out of your control, it's yeah, I don't know, just more frustrating. It is.
So it's like Pinball Quest, because Pinball Quest was a game that sounded really awesome at the time. It was like, okay, well, this is a pinball game, and you have to, on this screen, you have to like hit 3 knights and kill them in order to open up and advance to the next level up. But you're same situation, like the physics of the ball means that it takes a bad turn and you fall down 2 screens.
Yeah.
And like, it's just nothing but frustration. It's like a really cool idea, but just overwhelmed by the frustration of the cool idea.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with Pinball Quest, but it does sound like it's probably fairly similar to that. I use Getting Over It just because that's kind of the initial. There's that whole kind of like genre of game where it's I don't even know what you would call it. I would call it getting over it, like
Sure.
where you are just climbing and climbing and climbing, and there's like some tricky or precision, like movement that you have to do. But I think as well, again, because I think the thing with getting over it is you are basically always in control, right? But with this, once you flip the ball or use the flipper,
Right.
it's going where it's going. And like
Right.
there's some control in the sense of like where on the flipper you end up hitting it, but there's enough where it's out of your control, or just like you're sitting around and waiting for certain cycles to happen that just doesn't give it the flow that I would necessarily want from a game. I don't want to like knock it too much, because again, I do think it's a very cool idea, and I think there are some people who will probably really love this game.
Right.
I just ultimately don't think it's necessarily one for me.
No, the reason I keep bringing that game up is just because that game was like, it was such a cool idea. Like if you like pinball, like at the time when that came out on the NES, it was such a cool idea. And the frustration feels like exactly what you're talking about, that, fundamentally pinball means that there's a certain amount of lack of control. And I think particularly video pinball, because
Sure.
it's not actual physics,
Yeah.
right? It's simulated physics of some kind. I think it's sort of like, trying to play Peggle, right? Like Peggle, you can get better at Peggle, but to some degree, there's always like this randomness at play.
Yeah.
In it.
Looking at Pinball Quest, it's less of an adventure, I guess I would say, and it is much more of a like you are climbing up this board. But yeah, looking at this, there's definitely some similar vibes to it for sure.
Yeah, looking at FlippUp, it almost looks like it could be a phone game.
Sure.
Looks like what was the name of that phone game? I can't think of the name of it now, but there was a phone game where you were having to like jump up.
Like a doodle jump.
Yeah,
type of
doodle
game?
jump.
Yeah,
Doodle
exactly.
jump. Yeah. Just more pinball focused
Yeah.
than like that mechanic. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Cool.
so those are the two things I've had a chance to play. Nothing too in depth, quick little stuff. I think FlippUp, I'm sure if you're good at it, you could probably beat it in like 45 minutes. I am not good at it, and it's one that I'm sure on first playthroughs it'll take maybe 7 or 8 hours or something like that, just on the failures and falling down.
Cool. All right. So I played a couple of things. First one I'll talk about is Pizza Possum. So this is, I think, a game that came out a year or two ago. And it was on sale on Steam, but then in addition to being on sale, it was one of those like, you already own this game, so you get an additional discount. So I think I got it for like $1 something.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much the reason I picked it up. But anyways, so it's a weird game. I guess the way I would describe it is it sort of looks like Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Wait, is that the name of it? Yeah, Dark Legacy. There were two of those Gauntlet games on the N64 and Dreamcast. So it sort of looks like that era of Gauntlet game where you're in this sort of 3/4 overhead view down, and the level is very vertically based. So you're like kind of going upstairs and climbing up areas and everything. And you can see the height difference, but like because of the perspective, it's all a little distorted and out of whack when you're looking at it. Gauntlet Legend, that's the other title for that game. There's like one, I think Dark Legacy is like the remixed version of that game. But anyways, so it sort of looks like that, but you are sort of playing a sort of stealth Pac-Man game. And so like you start off in an area and you are a possum and you have to eat enough food. And if you eat enough food, you get a key, and then there are locked gates and you can go open one of the locked gates using that key. But there are dogs patrolling, and if the dogs see you, they will chase after you, and you can try to outrun them, or you can try to hide in bushes and everything from them. But as you move in, so once you open a gate, you can then move into the next area, and then there are little particular areas where you can checkpoint, so that if you get caught, you'll start at that new checkpoint and everything. And you're trying to reach this pizza that the dogs are cooking that's at the very top of the level and everything. It's a neat little arcade game. I think I got a little frustrated because it's maybe a little too much Pac-Man in that you really don't have any abilities other than just running around and trying to get food. So you're getting food, like there are boxes and crates, and it's just scattered about into this world. There are little cafes you'll run by, and there's food setting out on tables and everything. And I think I got a little frustrated because there just wasn't enough to do. It felt like maybe a little too Pac-Man-like. The stealth mechanic is interesting in that it introduces that, and so you are having to like watch this guard turn around, and when they turn around, you have to run behind their back and get the food. You do get items, so as you do different runs, you sort of power up and you get access to new items. And so then you get items that you can like throw out into the course. Like you can throw a barrier and the dogs won't cross the barrier. And so there are like these like additions to the gameplay mechanics as you play. You can play it co-op. I did not play it co-op. I think it's probably a more fun game played co-op.
I feel like that's the place that I had seen it was. I guess I thought it was like a party game, but
it very much presents itself
gotcha,
that way.
Okay.
And so I think as co-op, right, like if you are trying to like, hey, the dogs, let them get this other person and I'll get by and everything. Like I don't know how well that works in practice. As a single player game, it's kind of interesting. Again, for, under a couple of bucks, you can probably get enough entertainment and value out of it. I think probably as a party game, it would be more interesting to play. But, pretty neat little game, has a neat art style. You don't see many games with that Gauntlet Legend like level design, which I thought was really interesting because I that's one of my favorite games of that generation. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, somebody made a Gauntlet Legend, which is not something I thought I would say anytime soon. So, anyways, check it out. If you just have a couple of bucks and want to try it out, I would just say be aware what you're getting into.
Sure.
The other game I played is kind of another throwback. It is Agent 64, Spies Never Die. So, as you might be able to guess from the title, this game is going for classic Bond games, particularly GoldenEye. So very much GoldenEye and Perfect Dark is what it's aiming at. And there was a lot of hype before this game came out because like this game is really leaning into that. You play this sort of secret agent. You're an older kind of secret agent, like white hair and everything. And you're at one point trying to rescue your daughter, and your daughter sort of looks like Joanna Dark from Perfect Dark on the N64. And the game looks and plays, and like the guns are very similar to GoldenEye on the N64. You have 3 different levels of difficulty you can select. And again, like those games, the additional levels add additional challenges that you have to complete. So it is a game very heavily leaning into, people of that era who are still like, where's my new Perfect Dark?
Sure.
Where's my new GoldenEye? But it is very much trying to copy sort of the look of those games. So it has, it's fairly blocky. This is not a very modern looking game. It is, what if you had Perfect Dark and it ran at 60 frames per second? Mm-hmm. And so like, as somebody who really likes those games, I was excited to play this. I think it does a reasonably good job of capturing the feel of those games. It is missing some elements, but for the most part, it does a really good job of recapturing what those games look like, what those games felt like to play. I think the biggest criticism of the game is that maybe it's a little too much like those games, which I know like it sounds like an unfair criticism, but first-person shooters have really come a long way. And so like this is my problem anytime somebody makes like this spiritual successor to an old game. And it's like, it would be like somebody going back today and saying, I'm going to make a Super Mario Brothers. And it's like, well, but we have Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, games that have evolved that original game, very closely sticking to that original, to say nothing of the 3D Marios. And so to go back today and make a game that's trying to echo the original Super Mario Brothers is ignoring everything that they did with Super Mario World. Mm-hmm. And that feels a little weird at times to go back to, because like in just about every way, Super Mario World is a better game than Super Mario Brothers.
Sure.
Right? Like it better control, like more creative enemies, like, the world design, the like multiple exits of levels and everything. Like in just about every way that game has progressed. And, it's sort of like trying to go back and make a Castlevania that echoes Castlevania 1 or 3 when we have Symphony of the Night. Yeah. We have the Game Boy Advance, Castlevanias. And that's a neat idea, but you're kind of always thinking when you're playing a game like that, and, they did that, what is the name of that series? They did that with that sort of Castlevania-like that they did a few years ago.
Bloodstain.
Bloodstain, yes. Thank you. They did like a spinoff, or they did 2 of them actually, that were very much in the style of the 8-bit games, and those are neat games. but the entire time you're playing them, you're like kind of thinking like, but we've made better Castlevanias than this. You know, go back and play Castlevania 3 now. That's a cool game, but it shows its age.
Sure.
And I think that Agent 64 does that. Like, it shows its age. You know, I talked about this with Mina the Hollower, having played it over the summer. I kind of had that same feeling, like it's trying to go back and capture Link's Awakening, you know, some of those classic, particularly handheld Zelda games. And when you go back and you play some of those games, those are still really good games, but we've kind of progressed. Right? And if you were making a Zelda game today, you wouldn't make it to play exactly like Link's Awakening. You would like take modern improvements and include those in the game design. And I think that's part of the problem with this game. So like, I like it. And I think if you really love GoldenEye, if you really love the original Perfect Dark, I think there's some value in playing this. It does have a multiplayer mode. You can play multiplayer online. It does have bots. So if you're, you know, if you don't have anyone to play with, you can still play multiplayer with the bots. It does have like a more robust options for multiplayer, kind of more similar to Perfect Dark than the original GoldenEye. And so I think it does all that really well. You know, but like when you're getting into it and you're like, well, these levels feel like an N64 game level. And we've kind of progressed past that when it comes to first person shooters.
Sure.
And so, you know, it's difficult to evaluate the game because like there's a certain amount of nostalgia at work. But I think the best games that do this as spiritual successors take the feel of those games, but put it into a more modern package. And I don't think this one does that particularly well. I think there's something to still to be said about the multiple difficulty levels.
Sure.
And having different goals depending on the difficulty level. I feel like that's a mechanic that's been abandoned from a lot of modern games. And that was a really cool feature when Rare was doing those original games. I wish modern first-person shooters would pick that up more because I think it gives a lot of replayability to going back through levels and everything. You know, and like just thinking about the game differently. Like, you know, one of the great things about GoldenEye is some of those levels you could just blast your way through and kind of almost run your way through. But on the higher difficulty levels, you had to be much more stealthy because you could get overwhelmed very quickly because you were having to explore areas you normally avoid it. And so I think there's some cool things here. I don't know that this is the game that people 100% want it.
Yeah, I did pick this up. I haven't played it yet, but it's definitely been talked about in the N64 group that I'm in of us doing a playthrough of it or a race of it the same way we did with the GoldenEyes. The other thing that I think people were potentially excited about maybe doing is I believe you can do multiplayer for the campaign as well. And so I'm sure I will play this sometime over the next handful of weeks, and I'll look forward to coming back and talking about it more in the future with you.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you really like GoldenEye. You just played it the first time a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago at this point. That was the first time that I had played it. I do like GoldenEye. I'm always back and forth on whether I like GoldenEye or The World Is Not Enough better.
Sure.
Not having the nostalgia for the multiplayer and all that. But I do think it's a cool game, and I'm looking forward to playing it regardless of, there's a part of me that I think obviously what you're saying makes sense, but there's a part of me that's almost excited to hear that, like, oh no, I'm expecting the same jank in this game now as is in GoldenEye.
Well, and I'll tell you, the thing that's kind of interesting about it is, so if you go up to the doors, enemies will clip through the doors. which is, something that has been fixed in game
Sure.
engines, generally speaking.
Yeah.
But like it will have enemies clip through the doors, which is
They're
like
not supposed to do that, but like
Right.
you probably think they did that on purpose. You have to imagine.
well, like they almost had to.
Yeah.
Like you would almost have to program it to get that experience, right?
Yeah.
And so there's part of me that admires
Sure.
that devotion.
Yeah.
Right. And I will say I'm not entirely through this game. I'm, through a few of the levels and everything. So I haven't completed the game fully. So my opinion is still sort of up in the air
Sure.
when it comes to it. I just think, I guess I was playing, I was like, would somebody picking this game up fresh today
Oh, sure.
like it? And I think it almost requires those nostalgia glasses
Absolutely.
to like
Yeah.
really get the experience that you want out of it.
That makes sense. Yeah, somebody who's never played GoldenEye or Perfect Dark
Right.
is going to pick this up and be like, what is it? This is not well developed. And it's like, no, it was intentional, which is similar to what we talked about with that UFO 50, right? Of like using the limitations of the era for the development as like a very purposeful choice is interesting to like the ethos of the design, right? So yeah, I mean, like I'm definitely still looking forward to checking it out, and I think it'll be fun to play with that group of friends.
Yeah, no, I think I'm look forward to hearing your reaction to it and everything. Because I do think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not entirely sold on it.
It's maybe a cooler game than it is a good game.
Yeah, like maybe a cooler concept
Yeah.
than it is a great game.
Yeah.
And I think also games like this, we'll talk about a little bit more about this later, but like I think games like this always are an issue for me now because emulation is so available.
Sure.
Like, well, you could just play GoldenEye. You could just play
It's pretty
Perfect Dark.
pretty available at this point in time.
Right. And
Well, I mean, I guess if you want to call like the Switch Online stuff emulation, which it effectively is.
yeah. So, would I recommend this game over those? Well, I mean, it has some quality of life improvements in some ways, certainly the frame rate and, the way it actually runs on the hardware
Sure.
is an improvement over those games.
Here's the one question, if I can interrupt you really quickly.
Sure.
Are you playing it as a twin stick shooter, or does it have the same janky movement mechanics as well?
So you are, but like when you zoom in, it does the GoldenEye thing.
The reticle.
Yeah, where you're moving the reticle like within the fixed screen area.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I mean, like, is that good? Right? Which I think is a difficult question to answer because to some degree, I'll tell you, when you pause the game, you do not pull up your watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't carry over that element. Right?
Sure.
So does that matter? And like part of me was disappointed it doesn't do that.
Yeah. It's an interesting of like what they chose to remain faithful to.
Right.
And what they didn't.
And I think that's the issue with, like the reticle, like, well, that's kind of crazy that they kept that, but also would people be upset if they had not?
Sure.
Right. And I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's why this is a difficult game to like sort of to talk about or to review is because I just don't know how I don't know how individually people would react to it.
It's one of those things that it's like, you imagine, I don't know, websites like an IGN, it's like, well, as like a game in 2026, it's like a 5. But when you look at it through the lens of GoldenEye, it's like an 8.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's not a very useful review, but it's a very interesting, I don't know, piece of media to consider and reflect on.
Had this game came out as the third in that series,
Sure.
right, at the time, 2 years after Perfect Dark, people would have been fairly blown away by it.
Yeah.
But, some 30 years later, like looking at it, you go, I don't know how people
Yeah.
will feel about this, particularly, again, right, if they don't have those nostalgia glasses. But yeah, it's definitely cool. If you have not heard of it before and that piques your interest, I think it's worth at least going and checking out some gameplay of it to see if it might be something you're interested in. And I'm sure we will be talking about it once you've had a chance to play it. We'll talk about it some more.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to our news. And first up is there's a new studio form called Black Pony Immersive. Which, like, it's this a playoff of Pink Pony? Like, I don't know. Anyways, Black Pony Immersive is a new studio formed by many former Arcane Studio members to make immersive sims. So they particularly mention Deus Ex as an example of the sort of game that they want to make. Some of the people on the team have worked on things like the Dishonored and Thief games. So if you don't really know what that means by immersive sim and those games you don't have experience with, they're sort of, think of a sort of open environment where you are given an objective, like get into this building, and then you have multiple different ways. You can go in guns blazing, or you can like sneak in through the air conditioning grates, or you could bribe somebody. So that's generally what is meant by that, this style of game and everything. So you will remember that we talked about Arcane Studio is being let go from Microsoft. So this is some former people trying to sort of carry on that legacy. We still don't know the exact fate of the actual Arcane Studio. That was one of the studios they were having to negotiate with the French government because there's much stricter rules on when you lay people off or spin off a company. Along with this, we'll go ahead and group this story with it. The creator of Deus Ex, Warren Spector, has announced he is retiring from game development. If that name doesn't ring a bell, then some of the games that he's worked on over the years will. Warren Spector worked on Ultima 6 and some of the Underworld games that followed that, Wing Commander, Epic Mickey, System Shock, Crusader No Remorse, Thief Deadly Shadows. And most of those games, minus maybe Epic Mickey, if you were playing PC games in the 90s into the early 2000s, those were like hit after hit after hit, like some of the biggest, most well-respected games of that era. And so Warren Spector has, for years and years, I feel like been one of those sort of revered names in game development. And to hear him saying, I'm just tired. It's not that fun anymore. It's sort of a sentiment I feel like we've heard echoed from other developers when they start looking around, like the size of a team, the amount of money, the way that makes you sort of subservient to whoever is funding that game, that it's just pushed a lot of people to say, this isn't the industry that I grew up in, which doesn't make it bad, but doesn't make it as exciting to work in anymore. So best wishes to Warren Spector with whatever he does next. He did say he had a couple ideas still left for games. He just didn't think he'd ever get around to doing those. There's a story out about Sony and Horizon Hunters Gathering. So this was their attempt to take the Horizon games and turn them into a live service experience. So they are apparently overhauling, rebooting that game. And as part of that, they are stripping out the live service elements and instead focusing on the co-op and story mode element. So turning it from a live service game into a more traditional story-focused co-op experience. And apparently Sony has given them until December to show that this is a viable option, that they can do this. This is, I don't believe, the main Horizon development studio, which is Guerrilla Games. I believe this is a new group. Maybe some of the Guerrilla Games people are working on this, but one would assume that this might be the sort of situation come December, if Sony doesn't see a lot of promise, doesn't see that this is something that can be turned around quickly, they might just decide to scrap the entire project. This is another live service game from Sony getting canceled.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably good on them to catch it sooner than later, because maybe you can salvage it as this co-op sort of like story game rather than a live service game. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is what we talked about however long ago it was when it was announced that they were doing all this. Like, there are going to be some of these that are probably going to be big flops. Maybe not as big of flops as they've had, but it's if you
maybe not Concord level.
Yeah, exactly. Is it one of those things that if you put out 12 of these, is it okay if 9 of them are flops and 3 of them are Helldivers, right? Like, is that a win? And if it is, then okay, I guess. But
I think the problem is we have Helldivers and we haven't had another
exactly.
win.
Yeah.
Right. And
at least not that I can think of off the top of my head, from Sony at least.
Yeah. I mean, and they've canceled several of these. I mean, obviously Concord is the big disaster. Put it out 2 weeks later, pull the game.
Yeah.
But they've had several of these in development and pretty far into development.
Yeah, and you have to imagine they would have thought that like The Last of Us one would have been like a slam dunk, right? And that game is probably never coming out.
No.
Almost certainly. But Concord obviously was a disaster. Marathon seems like it's maybe fine.
That's true. I forgot they did.
I don't know
Marathon.
How it hasn't been Helldivers level of successful, but if it hasn't been a disaster either.
No, and I think that's sort of the problem for that game, right? It hasn't been a runaway hit, but it hasn't been a complete disaster. I think they're sort of unsure what to do with it.
I think that's the thing with these kinds of games, right? If they can't find a player base, then the game's dead in the water. Right.
And I think a problem with something like Marathon is how do you grow that user base?
Yeah.
Right. Like part of the success of Helldivers is that it just took off like a rocket.
Yeah.
And Marathon hasn't done that. Mm-hmm. It found a user base, but my understanding is it's not a significantly huge user base, which makes it difficult when it's a live service game that you're having to continually develop on to like justify that expense. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked about several of these games kind of getting scrapped in the process. There was the God of War one that they were supposedly working on. I think that was Blue Point Studio was working on that, and that resulted in them just getting shut down.
They closed down Blue Point, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Fair Games is still out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jade Raymond left that game.
That has not come out.
No. I understand why you might not be entirely sure.
That's like the heist games, the Payday, right? Yeah.
There's been rumors that game might get retitled. There was like a trademark that they had made. People were looking at it going, are they retitling this game? But I mean, we haven't heard or seen anything. They said they're still working on it, even after Jade Raymond left the project. They said they recommitted, hey, we're still working on this. But looking at a situation like this, you start to go, are you? They had one of their executives over the summer, I believe their CEO said, hey, no, we're still committed to live service games. And, I just keep looking at it going, like Helldivers, you mean? Because what else is there? Like Helldivers, Marathon, I guess you're still committed to those. You haven't scrapped those. I would assume you would try a Helldivers 3.
Oh, almost certainly.
But even that, I sort of wonder, how much of a bet do you make on that?
Yeah. That being said, I want to say they just recently put out another update, or I don't know if it was an expansion, but there was an update to Helldivers within like the last week or two. So like they are still adding to that game, which is good. I mean, it being your biggest hit, at least within this category of game, you should be trying to like make that last as long as possible, I imagine. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure either. It's certainly interesting, I think. Well, we'll just see what comes of that.
Yeah.
Like those Horizon games, they've been so popular. Those first two games have been so popular, and we've talked about before on the podcast, particularly with female audiences, which is, sometimes your big AAA games almost feel antagonistic to a female audience.
Sure.
And that one really found a very strong female audience. And then they've done, they did the VR game, they did the Lego game, they've done this, and it feels like maybe focus on the main franchise instead of all these side projects. Maybe really like refocus on making, a Horizon 3, whatever it's called. Let's see. A company called Ampere Analysis, which does some video game analysis and everything for business clients, has warned that $1,000 plus next-gen consoles could see 38% less sales in their first 5 years. So basically what they're saying is, hey, if you release the PlayStation 6 and the Helix, the next generation Xbox, if you release these at a $1,000 plus price, we think you could see 38% fewer sales in the first 5 years compared to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X generations. I think this is just interesting from a business perspective, because this is something that we've talked about, like at $1,000 plus, like how many people are buying these systems?
Yeah.
How many people just decide, hey, you know what? I'll stick with my PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
I don't need this system at $1,000 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing we talked about with the Steam machine. Like the Steam machine at $600-700 is very tempting. Steam machine at $1,500 really pushes a lot of people away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things that like you immediately move out of like the impulse purchase buy, or like I came into some extra money that I wasn't expecting.
I got a Christmas bonus.
Yeah. And you figure if you get $300, like, that's going to pay for half of it. So really, maybe $300 out, of what I would like really be spending. But like, you're like not even making a dent, in some ways. So yeah, I mean, like, I think that's very real. And especially, I don't know what that means when you consider the fact that like, not to have the same conversation we always have, but like if that price is not going to go down, right? Like it's one thing if it starts at 1,000 and after like 2 years or 3 years, it's down around 750.
Right.
But like if it starts at 1,000, there's a part of me that's going to be thinking, I got to buy it at 1,000 because in 3 years it's going to be $1,400.
I mean, probably more than that, right? Like if this console generation is anything to go by, I mean, we're seeing 50% price hikes or more. Who knows, right? Like if they launch it at $1,000, I think you're right. Like I sort of look at it and go, that's a little pricey for me. As somebody who is an adult and has a full-time job and
his work is centered around games. Yeah.
Right. And like, that's hard to justify. But then I also look at it and go, yeah, in 2 or 3 years, is it going to be $1,400?
Yeah.
Is it going to be $1,500? Like, are prices going to continue to go up? One would assume at some point there must be some self-correction in the game industry.
You have to think there would be.
But, you know, I don't see that happening in the next 2 years. Like everything you hear from analysts is that's not happening in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've talked about it before. If you want a Switch 2, now is the time to buy one because they're probably not dropping over the next 2 years and they're going up next month. So, yeah, I think it's just interesting to hear this from a business perspective because this is sort of the like thing that we all feel.
Mm-hmm.
Along with this, Sony CEO claims that the PlayStation 6 release date is still undecided. That's kind of interesting because, you know, I would say a year or two ago, most people were looking at 2027 as the most likely release date for a PlayStation 6. And, you know, sometimes they might not know the exact date, right? Are we going to launch this in September or November, let's say? But they usually have a pretty good idea. We're going to do this quarter for 2027, something like that. And for them to be a year out from that potential release date and still claiming, hey, we don't know when the exact release date is, seems to imply that release date may not be next fall. It may slide into 2028.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if you know, the Switch and its, you know, longer lifespan is gonna be more of a trend.
Well, I mean, you know,
because that was what, 9 years. It came out in 2016, 2017.
Yeah. But we're already into year 6, I believe, of the PlayStation 5.
I mean, yeah, the PlayStation and the Xbox, they've been around for a while, but maybe 2028 is not as unreasonable as it would have been 10 years ago for a console or 20 years ago for a console.
Yeah, I mean, for those listening, like, you know, if you go back 30 years ago, console lifespans were basically 5 years. Between the NES and the Super Nintendo and the Master System and Genesis, like generally the lifespan of a console was 5 years. It has slightly creeped up over the years, particularly looking at the PlayStation 3 and 4 and 5 generations. But when we say creep up, we're saying 6-7 years.
Yeah.
You know, Switch is really the outlier.
Yeah, I mean, you figure from 1986 to 2001, Nintendo put out 4 consoles in 15 years.
Yeah.
So.
And that's not the case. I mean, more and more these console lifespans are dragging out. There's some logic to that, right? Because there's a diminishing return in more horsepower.
Which, like, and I don't mind it. Like, I've got a PlayStation 5. Make it last the next 20 years. I don't care.
Well, I mean, okay, so, like, I think that's an interesting question. Do you feel like games have hit a wall where you as the consumer are like, I need something more powerful because the games aren't giving me that same dopamine hit when I see the graphics? They're not wowing me still as much.
I don't know. Like, I've never been that person that, like, the realistic fidelity is like, I mean, like, I will definitely appreciate it and think it's amazing, but that's not like a move the needle thing for me when it comes to a game anyways.
Sure.
So no, I guess, but like I could, for some people it might be. And if that is, like, I think that's fair, but I would say no. You know, when I look at like the newest games that are coming out, I'm not like, oh, this looks old, or like, you know, we could do bigger or better things.
Right.
So I would be on the side of like, if, you know, we've got another, you know, 2 years of PlayStation 5, because this is just like what we're able to do. But I also am not nearly informed enough on what that whole like process and power and all that, you know, actually entails.
Well, I mean, we talked about that new God of War game that was shown off this summer, and
Oh, yeah, sure.
Like that game looks cool.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, graphically, at least, what they're showing, if that was legitimate in-game footage, that looks like a cool game. Like there's nothing I saw in that where I was like, my biggest criticism of that was it looks like another God of War.
Yeah, yeah.
But, it was a very impressive looking God of War game. And so I keep coming kind of back to that I don't hear that from a lot of people. I don't hear a lot of people clamoring. I mean, you do have those sort of, those people who are constantly talking about, oh, well, this game is not running. It drops the frame rate. It's 4K 60, but like it occasionally drops down to 55 frames a second. And like, I get that. Like, that's fair. But like the PlayStation 5 Pro is there if you want that. So I don't know that people are really clamoring for something more powerful. And, when I look at Sony in particular, I think about Naughty Dog. They haven't put out an original game yet this console generation. So there's still this sort of feeling of unfulfilled promise for this generation of hardware to some degree.
Yeah.
I mean, we got one Halo game, and, I think people are still waiting. We've got the Combat Evolved or Campaign Evolved, but like one original Halo game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I guess the other big one, and maybe, I don't know if it even is still like a big one, but it certainly was in terms of like a nostalgia from when I was like in high school and shortly after, is the new Gears of War game, at least for the Xbox.
Right. And we did get Gears. Was Gears 5, was that on this console generation, or was that the very end of Xbox One?
That I don't know.
I can't remember.
I'm not a big enough Gears fan to follow it, but
that's part of the problem too, right? The console generations bleed together now.
Yeah.
Like, since so many of these games release, across console generations with backwards compatibility, it's sometimes a little difficult. Like, I was trying to think Ragnarok. Did that come out on PlayStation 5 or 4?
I think that was a hybrid. It came out on both.
Okay. So I think that's also like muddying the waters in a way that probably makes a lot of people not care as much.
It's a PlayStation 5 game. I don't know. Because that came out in like 2021?
I feel like
2022?
I feel like it was, because the previous one was a PlayStation 4. The reboot.
Yeah, that one, the reboot came out in 2018. So,
yeah. Well, look, if people like us don't know,
the
general consumer probably doesn't know and probably doesn't care.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I don't feel like I've hit any sort of like this can't do this thing. Everything that I'm seeing feels like it's right there and looks good. I think the question is, it's what the game release schedule is going to look like. And if you continue to put out, games, people will buy your stuff.
Yeah.
But, I think the Naughty Dog thing is relevant, right? Like, it would be crazy to think like, oh, it's been however many years and Nintendo never put out a Mario title or 3D Mario on whatever the console was.
I think this is the longest they have gone without a new Mario entry.
And Donkey Kong explains that, right? Like the fact that they put out Bonanza.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, like all game development cycles are longer than they've ever been.
Yeah, of course.
Right? So, but yeah, I mean, it's a valid point. Like, if Switch 2 console generation ends without a new Mario game, particularly a new 3D Mario game,
or a new Zelda game, considering there were 4 of them on the Switch one, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I guess we're getting Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, but we did get the Last of Us remake, on PlayStation 5, but I don't think anybody really counts that.
Yeah, I guess in the 4, I'm thinking on Switch, I was including that Link's Awakening one, but
sure.
that was basically, I mean, like that's a wholly revamped game.
Right. That's a wholly completely rebuilt from the ground up game. Last of Us was, I mean, yeah, it's a remake, but it's basically a remaster to some degree. All right, let's see. There have been leaks of Grand Theft Auto 6 footage. This included a supposed map of the game and different footage that showed off different gameplay elements within the game. Some of them which seemed to hint at some RPG style mechanics that harken back to Vice City, where you might be, the more you do a skill, more you practice a skill, your character would be getting better at it. The leakers of this footage claim that releasing this is retaliation for the digital-only release. That this is essentially a warning shot to Rockstar that if you do not release a physical version of the game, so a physical disc, we will continue to come after you. And that have pointed the finger at the rest of the game industry. This means you too. So a couple of things about this. One, I find this very funny that Netflix almost assuredly paid some amount of money to get the first look at the gameplay footage, and these people have undercut that.
Sure.
Like, we were joking about having to wait 6 hours to see the footage on YouTube, and here somebody has completely undercut that by a week or so by leaking this footage online. So there is some executive at Netflix that I'm sure is annoyed at the very least about this. Or maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe this will create more excitement to see that actual release.
Netflix exec, if it makes you feel better, I didn't even see these leaks. So, you know, you'll still have me on day one. You won't, but it's fine.
I did not actually watch the footage. I've read some accounts of it. I kind of, you know, like this sort of situation where you're doing it like antagonistically to the company, I think is a little kind of shady area. The other thing that I just think is interesting is this whole thing with physical games doesn't seem to be going away for Sony.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, you can say, well, this is a very minor part of the audience. This is like the die-hard people, constantly online people who are like really worked up over this and raising a fit. But I mean, those are your biggest proponents of a game console, right? Like the people who are casually buying Madden are not the biggest proponent for your system, and probably aren't the people who are going to rush out and pay $1,000 plus for a PlayStation 6 on day one. So maybe this becomes a bigger issue, not just for Sony, but for other game publishers who aren't releasing physical games. I think it'll be interesting to continue to follow this and see how this develops. Okay, so along with that story, Mario, you showed me this story apparently just broke last night or yesterday sometime, but we both just saw it this morning. There is apparently an Army battalion in Georgia that is offering 4 days off at the Grand Theft Auto 6 launch in order to play the game if you re-enlist early. So if you sign up for another 2 to 6 years into the Army, they will give you the 4 days off at the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. And apparently, I think they said 20 people had already taken advantage of this deal.
That's what I saw as well.
This seems insane.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around this. I don't know. Like, are you obsessive about playing a game on release date?
No.
I mean, I know there are people who will pay, you know, $90 for the premium edition of a game, $100 for the premium edition of a game. So they get it 3 days early and they can start playing it. And I get this is a game, right, that would be certainly popular particularly for, I guess, streamers who are making money off of it, right? Like you want to be the first person out there showing off the weird things that you find hidden in the game. You know, Rockstar is famous for doing that, hiding little gags and stuff in their game, Easter eggs. But I can't imagine saying I'm going to re-enlist in the Army. I feel like I would want some sort of financial bonus.
Is it like 2 to 6 years of re-enlistment? For 4 days?
4 days to play a video game.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I mean, I guess they're not checking, did you play Grand Theft Auto? I guess you could take a vacation those 4 days. But, you know, it's still like that is the crux of how they're framing it and everything. Yeah, like give me a $5,000 re-enlistment bonus so that, you know, I can buy my PlayStation 6. However much that's going to end up costing me. $5,000 might get you a video card these days for your computer.
Yeah.
Anyways, that seems like an insane story. Let's see. They today just released a trailer for a new Golden Axe animated series. Yes, the classic Sega arcade game is getting an animated series on Paramount Plus that launches on September 16th. Mario, we watched that trailer just before we went on the air. What did you think of the trailer for it?
As somebody with no connection to Golden Axe at all, I mean, it looks fun. It's on Paramount, so I'm probably not going to watch it, but it looks fun. If it was on Netflix, I would consider, you know, I guess I shouldn't say Netflix. If it was on a streamer that I actually had, I would watch an episode or two.
You're breaking David Ellison's heart right now. This is why he's going to use this in court, this podcast, and say, this is why I need to be able to buy Warner Brothers, because Mario will subscribe to HBO. He will not subscribe to Paramount Plus.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
So you think you might watch it if it was on a streamer you actually had?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any rush to watch it, but like from what I saw from the trailer, like I said, it looks fun. It looks silly. Yeah. It feels like a very sort of meta take. Yes, definitely.
On it. It seems like they're really kind of playing around with the idea of, hey, we are characters in a video game and we're somewhat self-aware, almost a Deadpool sort of take on it. At one point, the female character, she's supposed to be a Valkyrie. She leads a charge, and she leads the charge by shouting Sega, which is very stupid, but like is also kind of funny. And it seems to have, like a lot of the elements of the games. Yeah. Like it has the little purple dinosaur things that you ride around. It has at one point them stomping on one of the little thieves that come and steal your magic and everything. So
I think now we'll have to wait and see, but I think the one thing that will hurt this is it looked like it was maybe more of like an adult animation show. Like it had more of a mature humor to it.
It did show them getting like doused in blood.
Yeah. And, I mean, like I get like this is a nostalgia show, right? Like
you can say it's for old people like me.
12-year-olds are not going to like, oh my God, Golden Axe. Like that's not happening. But
they should.
Sure. But I do think that if you made it on the surface, it does not look as kid friendly as I think it probably should be to be successful. Right. I think if it was a more kid, and maybe it is, but like I said, all the stuff that I saw in it, if it was a more kid friendly show, I think it would probably be better off.
Well, I mean, it's what we talk about a lot, right? Like, does anyone under 25 even know what Golden Axe is? Yeah.
And the answer is probably mostly no.
Yeah. And so you're basically completely ruling that audience out, right? Or you're making it very difficult to bring them into the mix, right? Yeah. Like maybe some of the humor sort of crosses over, crosses over with some of the modern cartoons and everything. Sure. So like maybe somebody watching this would see the appeal in that, but like this isn't like you're making a Kirby cartoon where like Kirby games are coming out and still getting sold to kids today.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't a Pokemon cartoon. This isn't Castlevania. When they did the animated series for that, there's still new Castlevania games coming out.
Yeah.
There's one coming out this year. And as far as I know, there's no new Golden Axe game coming out soon.
Yeah.
Like there was, that was one of the franchises they were talking about reviving and working on, but it doesn't sound like it's going to arrive, similar to when this cartoon comes out.
Yeah.
Which seems like a big missed opportunity.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it looks, I guess I'm just curious. It does have my curiosity, but like it also looks like the sort of thing like I might watch one episode and then just, okay.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you have the giant eagle, that's cool, but like that's all I need to see.
Yeah.
Like this cartoon is actually like maybe too stupid to.
And I guess that's where I think like I understand wanting to tailor it to the people who are going to have the nostalgia for it, but are those people going to sit down and watch 12 episodes, 10 episodes of a cartoon? Like some of them are, sure. Certainly. And it might be really good, and maybe you do watch the whole thing. Like I think that's certainly a realistic possibility. But the people who are more likely to do that are children. And I think even if kids have no connection to the source material, like that doesn't mean that they might not still watch it and enjoy it, right?
Yeah, I mean it feels very sort of Rick and Morty from the preview. I mean, maybe not quite that extreme, but I mean that sort of kind of silly, self-referential, like self-aware humor and everything. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's cool that somebody would go and do something with Golden Axe. I wish it was Sega making a new Golden Axe video game.
Yeah, I mean, like something like this is definitely a passion project, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not an IP that matters.
Yeah, I don't think the people at Paramount are like, yes, we're gonna be rolling in the Golden Axe dollars.
Well, I mean, I think that's really interesting because over the last few years, I feel like we have on this podcast talked about a lot of, hey, people bought the rights to make movies or television shows of these games.
Yeah.
And we would go through and look at the list and go, what in the world is that? Who is that appealing to?
Yeah.
Right? Like, we've talked before, like, okay, we're going to make a Shinobi movie. Like, so a ninja movie. Like, what is the storyline for Shinobi that would matter to anyone?
Yeah.
And I think with Golden Axe, I feel like we probably did talk about this when it was announced. And, my sort of feeling is, Golden Axe is a really cool game, but it's really just that first game that's really cool that everybody remembers playing in the arcade. And like I have some nostalgia for that, but it's not like it has some great lore. It's not Zelda.
Sure.
Right. So anyways, cool news. I don't know what it actually turns into. Tetsuya Nomura has promised no delay for Kingdom Hearts 4 from the announced fall 2027 release. So we got a release date. It'll come out in fall of 2027. And he said confidently, like, there will be no delay. He's entirely confident they can hit that release date. This is great news if you're Alicia. No, those games are incredibly popular.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably end up getting it at some point. I'm not gonna enlist in the army to play it, but
Enlist in the army. We'll give you a copy of Kingdom Hearts 4.
But you know,
They're not even giving them a copy of Grand Theft Auto 6. They're giving them 4 days off to play it.
Yeah, it's my, you know, Sergeant said it's my turn to have the control. Anyways, yeah, I mean, like I like the Kingdom Hearts games. I've not played all of them. You know, I think that's sort of the fantasy of one day playing all of them. But
there's so many at this point, like all the side games.
Exactly. But I do think it's cool. You know, there was such a long period of nothing when it came to Kingdom Hearts 4 that the fact that within the last couple of months we got new footage and a release date that's awesome.
Yeah, they put out that new trailer that showed Coco is one of the environments that you'll visit, one of the Disney stories that you'll visit. So, you know, that seems cool. That's one of the better Disney films of the last 25 years or so.
There have been some good memes that have come out about it. I think my favorite one was something about, you know, Donald and Goofy going up to Hades in the underworld saying, "We heard that Sora's here." Like, no, he's in the Mexican underworld.
Oh my! It's a new God of War game. They're going to unite all the Disney underworlds. How many Disney underworlds are actually ever shown? Like, there's Fantasia, right? There's at least 3 that we can think of offhand. That would be really fascinating if they did that. That would be a really good gag.
Yeah.
If they like.
And then it's you know, and then it pulls the line from the Hercules movie where Hades is like, you know, Olympus is that way. It's like Mexico is that way.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool if they actually did that gag. Let's see. They had the D23 event. That's where Kingdom Hearts 4, the trailer was shown off. Also at that, there was a panel involving some of the people working on The Simpsons, including the creator, Matt Groening. At one point, it was brought up about video games, and somebody asked about Simpsons Hit and Run, to which Matt Groening responded, I may be speaking out of turn here, but it's my understanding it's coming back in some form. He was quickly cut off after making that statement. And the current showrunner on the show was like, or not, which seems like Matt Groening really was speaking out of turn.
That's funny.
And seems so. This goes back to something that I believe we talked about in the spring, which is that the original Simpsons Hit and Run was developed by Radical Entertainment. Some of the people from that team have formed a new team called New Radical Games. You get what you give. And they are, on their website, they list, like, here's games that we worked on. One of those games was Simpsons Hit and Run, which some people interpreted as a sign that they would be doing something with Simpsons Hit and Run. They also show off some of the other games that they've worked on. So, you know, it was not like that was the only game they had on there. But anyways, point being, Matt Groening's comments, this new studio forming, sure seems to be a sign that something is happening with that.
It's another game that, you know, people have a lot of nostalgia for.
This is the Grand Theft Auto style Simpsons game.
I played this game a lot when I was a kid. It's funny, you know, I have a lot of nostalgia for it, but then I like watch people play it for the first time, and it sounds like it has not aged very well. But, you know, it's also fair for a game from 2005 probably.
I think even at that time that game came out, it felt very... That game was a little janky at the
clunky,
time it came out.
Yeah, sure, that's fair.
Like the controls, particularly when you were outside of the car.
Yeah.
I feel like it always had a little bit of clumsiness to the control. It's still probably maybe the best Simpsons game ever made. It's certainly in that conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say it was I feel like the Crazy Taxi, like was
Right.
pretty popular as well. I remember Road Rage.
Road Rage, yeah. And then, I mean, obviously the arcade game is a fantastic
of course,
game.
yeah.
But yeah, those three, like, I mean, those are certainly in the top 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is really cool. You know, I don't know what this will be. Like, I doubt it's a full remake, but maybe like a remaster reissuing of it.
Yeah. Put it out on modern consoles or even just like making it available on PC or something like that.
Yeah. That seems most likely. And, you know, maybe then if it's successful, they could, you know, turn that into
second one or something, yeah.
making a sequel to it. Let's see. 2K has unveiled a new studio called Small Axe. It is staffed with some former FIFA talent, the EA FIFA soccer games, and their logo particularly looks like a soccer patch that like you would have on your
The logo for the company?
yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like a patch that you would have on a soccer uniform or kit or whatever they call what they wear. And so what people have sort of connected the dots and said, hey, well, you know, Netflix tried to put out that FIFA game this summer that to tie into the World Cup. That game wasn't particularly met with a lot of enthusiasm. Here they're making a new studio specifically to work on, they have said, a new sports franchise. So a lot of people have looked at it and said, are we getting FIFA 2K, right? Are they going to buy the FIFA license because that name still carries a lot of weight?
Sure.
So much so that when we talk about EA's game, we still call it FIFA often instead of FC, which is its actual name, which I think is a pretty bad name that's difficult for most people to remember.
FC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it stands for football club, but I just think most
yeah.
people, at least in the U.S., still aren't used to that. Netflix has announced that they're closing Night School, the studio behind Oxenfree. I really like the original Oxenfree. I think that's a great game, so I'm sad to see this. You know, in all these situations, hopefully they like land on their feet, find something new to work on, the people involved. Twitch is now using streamers to train AI by default. You must go into the settings and opt out of letting them use your stream to train AI. You know, this is kind of interesting because, okay, most Twitch streams involve multiple components. So there's the gameplay footage, which almost certainly the game developers have not signed off on letting Twitch use in their AI to train their AI. But then usually people have, you know, at the very least their voice on the game, but often have video of themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Along with the stream. And so, you know, like you have kids streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are rules against. I think Twitch says you have to be like 16.
Yeah,
but I don't think that necessarily stops, you know, adults who are streamers for like, oh yeah, it's my kid is playing right now type of thing. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And you know, Twitch is owned by Amazon, and this is an Amazon-driven,
right?
Whatever they're doing with their AI. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I mean, like I saw it and I went and opted out of it. You know, I know my stream is probably not the one they're defaulting to, but you know, the fact that they have hidden it so deep in the settings as well, like it's not like an easy, like you click here, like you're going like multiple layers deep into the settings to get to this.
Well, and it wasn't like they did a pop-up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
it just happened.
This is our new policy. Click here to opt out.
Yeah.
And they were apparently doing a live stream and they asked them about this and they said, yeah, if we made it opt in, nobody would.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I understand the like 16 and of course we know like people younger than that get on there and stream. But even 16 is not an adult.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? So, like, you have some...
16 or 14, something like that. And maybe it's just to make an account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, you have people who aren't adult who can't, you know, like, understandably, right? Like, they have to agree to terms and service anyway.
Sure.
So they are agreeing to some contract. But, like, anytime you do something with kids, it feels icky.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, I feel like feeding images of kids into an AI feels particularly icky.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if something more comes of this long term. Supermassive Games has announced they are laying off 75 staff. I've seen some reporting that that's about half the studio, that they're at about 150 currently. That's because they have already previously staffed down.
Is the one that you sent us that the wording on it was very, I don't know, it was like a little too much PR speak?
Yeah, like, and even like PR speak run through AI.
Yeah, sure. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but it was like, oh, I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can find it really quick while you're...
It's in our chat.
Yeah.
So Supermassive, if the name doesn't ring a bell, this is the studio behind Until Dawn, you know, the Quarry. They've also been doing the Dark Pictures series of games. So the sort of like interactive horror movie type games and everything that are, you know, not... They're a step up from visual novels. There's gameplay and everything, but they're like made to be very accessible to casual players, I would say.
Yeah. Redundancy consultation process.
Yeah.
So it's just like feels like the most dehumanizing thing possible.
Yeah.
I
mean, which you're an independent studio, right? Like, that's what I always get with these sort of things. If this was coming from Microsoft,
sure.
Microsoft is a code heartless giant corporation.
Yeah.
That employs tens of thousands of people, right? And so when they say something like that feels like it's been run through Copilot, which everything Asha Sharma puts out reads like it was been put through Copilot, their AI model. And that's not to say anything about her intelligence,
sure, yeah.
But like she comes from the AI team. And so it just reads like that. But like, I think you're right. This particularly just feels, for an independent studio, it feels so code and like, just, you know, like these are your coworkers. These are your friends.
Yeah. For, you know, again, a studio of 150. I mean, like 150 people is a lot of people, but like...
It's a fair-sized studio.
You can know 150 people, right? You could work at Microsoft and have like half the people you're never, ever going to interact with, right? But like 150 people, you know, whether you're close with that many people, probably no, but like you can have a relationship with 150 people in terms of like a workplace.
Well, I mean, it's the blip from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like Thanos snapped his fingers and half the employees disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if that number is right, 150, if that's right. But like, you know, just the idea that 1 in 2 people could disappear and then to refer to it that way.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about...
That's what I was just going to say. Comparing it to Tim Schafer's
Right.
announcement of Double Fine having to cut 23 people.
Yeah, and Tim Schafer's feels much more of a human response, and it feels, look, it still sucks for those 23 people.
Of course, yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can say to make it feel good. I just think...
And I'm sure that PR team probably had to look over this as well for all the phrasing and stuff, but like it still reads like this is a person who cared about 23 people who just lost their job.
Yeah, which I think helps. It doesn't feel... I feel like this code and personal statement feels like sort of twisting the knife.
Yeah.
And I don't think that was the intent. I don't think they did this.
I mean, I'd like to think it wasn't.
Well, I just... It feels too code to be intentionally dickish. Like it feels accidentally or just oblivious.
Sure, yeah. Oblivious, I think, is probably a good way of putting it.
And that's not an excuse, but like, I just don't think it's intention. I don't think this was done with malice.
Yeah, I think as soon as I saw it, I'm like, man, just tell me you're firing me.
Yeah, I mean, there are kind ways to do that, or at least try. And I feel like kind of bending over backwards, again, when you're an independent studio particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right, let's see. Halloween the game has been banned in Australia and New Zealand due to drug use. So if somebody were to tell you that Halloween the game, the new asymmetrical horror game that is coming out this fall, that it was getting banned in a country, you would assume it's for violence or gore. But in fact, it is because of drug use. They will not rate the game in Australia and New Zealand, which means that the game can't be sold. And it's because there's drug use in the game. Apparently in the game, you can smoke pot, and it allows you to see Michael Myers' movements, or where he has been pinged around the map. If you have your character light up a joint in the game, which is very funny because, like, drug use is always a part of those 80s slasher films, the whole sort of like morality of them. And so they are turning that into a special ability. I don't know if there's any negative effects, like, do you have to like go find something to eat after you've smoked?
Your movement is, off, or there's a delay or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any negative side effects that go along with it, but regardless, they are not going to put out the game in those territories, which is, I don't think people think about, like, this is something that happens on a semi-regular basis, that games still to this day get banned from particular territories or are forced to edit their content. There are things in China that you can't show, like skeletons in games. Very famously in Germany, you can't show like Nazi imagery. So like the Wolfenstein games and some others have to be edited in that territory. So, this is still something that happens on a semi-regular basis in video games. This is one of the weirder ones in recent memory, I feel like. I don't feel like, you don't think of Australia as a particularly sort of prudish location. So seeing them ban this for smoking pot is a little weird. If you told me like the local church group was boycotting this game, I would buy that more. Last bit of news here. Aliens Fireteam Elite was released on the Switch 1 as a cloud version, meaning that you could play the game, but it was completely streaming from the cloud. There was nothing, other than a little piece of software in order to stream it. There was nothing actually installed on your system and everything. It wasn't running locally. There were several games that did release, including some of the Resident Evil games on Switch like this. But the team behind Aliens Fireteam Elite has announced that game, the streaming cloud version on Switch only, is getting shut down, which means if you purchase that game, you can no longer play that game going forward. So you just do not have access to it. This is not entirely shocking. Obviously, at some point, servers have to be shut down because there's a cost involved with keeping servers up. There is maintenance required in patching those for security vulnerabilities and that sort of thing. I think the negative is, right, like, if you are going to push streaming as a viable option to play video games, this is the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Because if they're, even something like Steam, if I buy a game on Steam and I'm buying that game digitally, and 3 years from now, Steam decides, well, we're going to remove that game. Not just remove it for sale, but we're going to physically remove it. You can no longer download this game through the Steam client, which Steam has almost never done, and only like most extreme cases have they done that. But usually on the PC, you could still find that game available somewhere and download it. The potential here is if a game were released this way, then 3 or 4 years from now, that game just may not be available anymore, period. Right? Like, even if you want to pirate a copy, it would just not be available because the game was never on somebody's system.
Yeah, sure.
It was always streaming remotely. And so, one of the pushes with the rising cost of hardware has been to say, hey, well, what if maybe streaming is more of a viable solution? Instead of buying $1,000 box, you buy, you just take your Roku and install our app and stream games through it. But like, this is exactly the sort of thing, right, that scares people away from that. And I completely get that, right? This is Stadia, Google Stadia. Like, that was what they were doing. They were selling games. You buy a game and it was only accessible via streaming. Yeah. To their credit, they gave everybody a refund when they shut Stadia down. I guess Google can do that because they're a multi-billion-dollar company, but these smaller studios certainly aren't going to be able to do that. So anyways, like more kind of portents of like bad news ahead for the game industry, possibly, like if this becomes too common. Maybe a good lesson not to buy streaming versions of games. All right, well, that does it for news. Let's move on into our big question of the week. And the question, as I hinted at earlier, we've been seeing a lot of these spiritual successors. So what retro game would you like to see a spiritual successor like Agent 64 or the other game that came out very recently, Wild Blue Skies, which is apparently a fairly close Star Fox 64 spiritual successor. Like, that's actually one of the criticisms I've read about it, is that it is like maybe too close to Star Fox 64. So is there a sort of retro game that, Mario, you think about that you would really love to see a new studio, sort of unconnected? So we're not talking about a new Zelda game from Nintendo, right? We're talking about somebody else coming in and making a new one of those.
So I kind of had some trouble with this question because I feel like the answers that immediately came to mind like already exist. So, I was thinking, we've talked about it plenty of times, but like, the arcade sports games of like the NFL Streets and stuff like that.
Sure.
Or like a Super Mario 64. I kind of just want a simple 3D platformer. I feel like, as we've talked about as well, most 3D platformers took the Donkey Kong 64 route of here's a billion things for you to collect.
Right. Yeah.
I will say, and I know we talked about it a while back, and I think I really underrated it at the time, is that game A Hat in Time. As I've gotten further away from that game, I actually have like come to appreciate it a lot more. So I like, there's games out there that do exist. But the other two that came to mind, I don't know if I can't imagine there will ever be a Katamari game that is not a Katamari game.
Sure.
But I'd love to see something else in that style. I feel like that is kind of the only game that is that, like, we're just going to make essentially a big snowball of things that you roll up. But I guess so those are the first three that kind of came to mind.
And Katamari is so steeped in its Katamari-ness.
Yeah.
Right? Like that you kind of would almost like to see a new take.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because I feel like a new Katamari game can never break too far from those original games.
Yeah, they are going to be silly and weird, and I love them, but having something that, is not that, I would be interested in seeing what that potentially looks like. But then the final thing that I ended up coming up with that I think, I don't even know what you would do, but would be something like the Incredible Machine, the old PC sort of, I guess, edutainment kind of game, but something where you are essentially just making Rube Goldberg machines.
Right.
I think would be interesting to see.
Yeah. For people listening, think the board game Mousetrap.
Yeah.
Right. That if you don't know what a Rube Goldberg machine is just by name. Yeah. That's a cool game. It's one that I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. I tried to think about this, and I feel like most games have had an attempt or two.
Yeah.
And, I think you're right that when we see 3D platformers, they tend to lean in the Banjo-Kazooie sort of direction, less the Mario 64 direction. So I would love to see just a basic platformer, that just really well done level design and that sort of thing. That would be exciting. And I keep waiting for one that does that super well. And I think you're right. There's been some valid attempts. I played Big Hop.
That's right. Yeah.
Earlier this year. That's a pretty neat game that tries that. But I think the arcade sports games, we've talked a lot about, we'd love to see a new NBA Jam or NBA Street style game. There seems to be a real market there for that, but maybe the finances don't work out because of having to get the NBA license.
Yeah. And there have been attempts that just have, granted, I don't think those Playgrounds games are great, but
they are not great.
Yeah. But I do wonder if those games were better if they would have had a bigger foothold, or if it's just we're a particular type of person that would love to see it, but other people are not all that interested. It goes back to the question we were talking about earlier about the consoles and the power. Do people they want the more lifelike sim, and the arcadey one just doesn't interest them?
I wonder with those games if you made a new NBA Jam today, you would have to sell that game at $70 to make it financially viable.
Yeah, and that would be crazy.
And in this day and age, everyone would expect that game to be $30.
I was going to say $20.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sure. $30 is fair. But yeah.
But, that a new NFL Blitz, those style of games feel like they're, I don't know, especially with the party game atmosphere, the couch co-op style, resurgence we've had over the last decade plus. It feels like more now than ever, there's a desire for that kind of game. But
just those aren't friend slop games, but there's a popularity in co-op gaming right now. And something like that feels like it would fit.
Yeah. The thing I thought about was really arcade racers. So I was kind of thinking since the examples given are N64 games, I was thinking something like the cruising games.
Sure.
We did get the cruising game, Cruising Exotica, Cruising Blast, excuse me.
Oh, yeah. Exotica's on the N64.
We did get Cruising Blast a couple of years ago for the Switch, only on the Switch. That was an arcade game. They ported it to the Switch, nowhere else. Really weird. And that game is no longer available digitally on the Switch. You can only buy hard copies of that game now. They've pulled it from the store for reasons I don't know. But that's a really good arcade racer game. We don't ever get those anymore.
Yeah. F-Zero was the other one that I had kind of been thinking about as well.
Yeah, a new F-Zero. We haven't gotten one of those since the GameCube. We did get that
99.
Yeah, F-Zero 99 on the Switch Online. Not a favorite of yours, but a favorite of mine, Beetle Adventure Racing. But like that style of arcade racer,
Yeah.
Again, I think it's just difficult to make that sort of game make financial sense as a $70 product.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, and I think it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if like Mario Kart has just like really become the monopoly in that style of racing game. And like even that though, like it is a different style, but I think people associate them together.
Yeah. I mean, that may be it, right? Like this is all we need. Forza Horizon is sort of that arcade / sim.
I think that well, I don't know how new it is now, but the Hot Wheels one, the last one that came out, I thought was supposed to be pretty good too.
Yeah. But I mean, we're getting one of those style of arcade racing games every few years.
Yeah.
Where we used to get several of those a year.
Yeah.
And
oh my God. You wouldn't believe, I mean, having played through the N64, there's many of those games on the N64.
Oh yeah. Those games were insanely popular during that era. So yes, some games like that, I keep looking for somebody to go back and try one of those.
Okay. Since we're talking about the N64, I'll give one more if that's okay.
Yeah.
The N64 era of the wrestling game. It's the other one that we talk about all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, that sort of pick up and play, like party atmosphere wrestling game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the WWE games have their audience, but like nobody has been able to make a new one of those that feels like that, WCW versus NWO or what is it, WrestleMania?
Yeah, WrestleMania 2000, No Mercy, all those kinds of games.
Like nobody has been able to capture that style of game. And I think going back and playing those games, they're rougher than I think people remember.
Sure, definitely.
But it does feel like after all this time, we should be able to make that sort of pick up and easy to play. Like, I want to be able to sit down with people and casually play with a pretty big roster of wrestlers and just have fun with it. And I feel like that's not doable in with modern wrestling games. WWE is not pick up and play.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gone more that sort of sim route with it. And that doesn't make it a bad game, but like, much like the arcade sports games.
Yeah. It's just a different vibe, right?
Yeah.
Or the arcade racing game, like sitting and playing, Gran Turismo is a very different experience than playing Cruisin'.
Right. Or even for Forza Horizon.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I love those games, but like those games are not, those aren't fully arcade games.
Yeah. And so it's just like there's an experience that isn't being captured.
Right.
And it isn't that what they're giving. Yeah, we're just saying it's not as bad. It's just there's a thing that's missing that I think there's an opening for some game or type of game to fill that.
Yeah, and I think, just to go back real quick to Agent 64, you look at a game like Agent 64, and Agent 64 feels like the road not taken. Like this is the route that first-person shooters did not evolve down.
Yeah.
And I get when there's an interest and a nostalgia for, well, what if they had?
Yeah. What
if games had went down this route instead of the Quake or Halo route? There's that what if question. And I think with wrestling games, there's, that question of what if they had continued down that route of No Mercy instead of, the sort of modern sort of sim style that we ended up with. Like again, maybe just financially it doesn't make sense. I wonder with like 2K, would it make sense to make that style of game every few years in addition to the main WWE games?
Sure.
Like they did that the WWE All-Stars.
Yeah, they did a Playgrounds as well.
Yeah, that Playgrounds game's not very good, but that
Sure, yeah.
that All-Stars one was pretty good.
That one I don't remember, but I'll have to look it up.
You know, and as just an arcade-style wrestling game.
Yeah.
But anyways, all right, that does it for this week. Thank you to Mario. Thank you to everyone listening. You can find old episodes and other content by going to our website at salukigames.com. If you have comments, questions, feedback, you can send it to justin.young@siu.edu. Otherwise, we will be back soon, hopefully getting into more of a weekly routine now that we're back into the semester and everything. So hopefully we can like start getting this out on a regular date and time as best as we can. But stay tuned for that. Until then, take care of yourself, play something fun, and we will talk to you again soon.